Let's bring in Jason Jones of The Athletic with us here on Dealing with KC. Jason, first of all, great stuff here with Chris Webber. First thing I got to ask, man, right out the gate, you hit us with the Chris Webber didn't want to beat L.A. Webber wanted to beat L.A. or be with L.A. Did you know that going into the conversation? Is that a well-known nugget in NBA circles that he wanted to be with the Lakers?
I'd heard a little bit, but I didn't know it was that, that it was that direct until he told me the way he did. I talked to Webb for about 45 minutes for this, so a lot of the stuff I didn't even get in the story. But, yeah, he said, after the trade, he made it clear he wanted to be a Laker. And I had never heard the story about where Jeff Petrie tells him, I know you want to be a Laker, but we're going to keep you. I thought it was he didn't like Sacramento. It wasn't just that. That was the second time he had a chance to play with Shaq. And he missed the first time because of said, when they were filling blue chips, he didn't want to do blue chips because he felt like after the whole Michigan timeout situation, he didn't deserve to have fun that summer. And while he's out working out, getting ready for the league, Shaq is working, filming a movie and playing pickup games with this guy named Penny Hardaway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the rest is history.
That's such a crazy story that I've heard Chris tell before about blue chips and how Shaq would call him, say, "Fam, we're gonna play together. Fam, we're gonna light up the world together. Like it's gonna be me and you." And then as you just explained, they go to film blue chips, and now all of a sudden, Shaq's calling the general manager, he's like, "Man, you got to see Penny Hardaway. We got to draft this Penny Hardaway kid. We got to get this kid Penny Hardaway, man. He's a bad boy." You mentioned not being able to get everything in the article. Is there something that that kind of hit the cutting room floor that you really wish could have been in the piece?
Kind of some of the things he said about Sacramento. One thing he said that he really thanked Marty McNeil for helping his transition. And he said that when he got to Sacramento, when he was coming, the guy he reached out first to was Corliss Williamson. Because he was like, Corliss is the man. I got to talk to Corliss, and Corliss was like, got to talk to Marty, too. So he said, those two guys played a very big role in his transition to Sacramento. He spoke really highly of Coach Carrill. Said Coach Carrill, extended his career. Coach Carrill just had a lot of good talk about basketball with him and said, they're going to talk bad about you. They're going to say you're playing soft, but I'm moving you to the elbow. And we're going to play through you, through the elbow a lot. And he said, once it's kind of like Coach, he gave him the permission to be himself, as opposed to just being what everyone told him he had to be on the block all the time. And he's like, if you want to throw the ball behind your back, do it. We're not going to box you in. And if you know a little bit of his history, they kind of didn't like that in Washington. They didn't like him on or off the court. And I think I even put a comment under the story. Imagine in today's climate with social media, if a team traded a 25-year-old all-star for two 30-year-olds. I don't even think we even realize how crazy that trade was. Even in retrospect, the more you look back, how crazy that trade gave him away.
Yeah, it's weird how his reputation took hold or is perceived. It's like so quickly. Like we were just he was Warriors, Bullets, and then all of a sudden he uses the line with you. They wanted to banish me to Sacramento. You mentioned the line about Jeff Petrie saying I'm not going to trade you to the Lakers. How ultimately did that all come together? Where Chris wants to go to L.A., it's not happening. How ultimately did Chris just kind of reside to the fact that he's being banished to Sacramento, that he's coming here?
Right up until training camp to the first practice when he had to talk with Jeff. Where Jeff and Rick pretty much told him, we're not trading you. We're going to win with you. And we believe in you, and this is going to be a good place for you. But he was holding out all hope that he was going to be a Laker. He wanted a chance to win a championship, and so much of what Webb did was wrapped up in, I got to win a championship. It didn't happen in Michigan, so I got to get a championship. And but he said before that practice, he told the story too. His brother told him, "There's that point guard they drafted is pretty good. You're going to like him." He was like, "Whatever. I ain't never heard of Jason Williams. I ain't never heard of this kid." Then you meet him, white guy with this, West Virginia accent. He's like, are you serious? This is going to be the guy who's going to, help me win. And he said he's on the court with Jay Will. Goes, oh, my God, this guy can play. And then, there's this guy in tight clothes named Peja he had never met. He knew who Vlade was, obviously. But after that first practice, he kind of said, okay, my brother was right about the Jay Will kid. We might have something here. But he said up until the time he got to that practice, he was really holding out on, that Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones, Elgin Campbell trade.
Wow. So that was legit the turning point for him then, that first, his very first practice in Sacramento?
Yeah, that's when he said he kind of saw it and said, okay, this is going to be special. He knew there was work to be done, but he's like, okay, I see what Jeff's put together here. And now we can maybe see what we can do and start to build on it. He said it was just a thing where, he said the way they kicked him out of Washington, you thought he was the worst person in the world, and and the way he saw it was, I fix it by winning, and the path to winning is to get to a good team. And Sacramento had never been good.
Yeah.
So and then you just look at the location. You go from the Bay Area to D.C. and now Sacramento. It's like, like you said, it was supposed to be punishment, and he realized that they traded him there, and in their eyes, to punish him.
Jason Jones of The Athletic with us here on D'Lo and Casey on ESPN 1320. Chris Webber going into the Hall of Fame this weekend. You mentioned the championships. Obviously, he has, unfortunately, two famous, blunders. They're not necessarily blunders, but there's obviously the timeout, and then there's the Game 6 followed by the home loss in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. In your conversation with him, does it feel like does the lack of a championship either at Michigan or in Sacramento or in the NBA period, does it feel like that lingers over him?
Not now. When I talk to him, he still wants to get into a front office one day, and he believes that whether it be in the front office or in ownership, he can still get a championship, and that's where he's looking at long term in terms of his future. He still wants to work for an NBA team. We all know he wanted to work for the Kings when Vlade got the job, and he never really got a shot at that. And so he doesn't let that hang over him. And like he said in the story, that he knows guys that have won championships that don't like their teammates. And he says, when he gets together with the guys from the Kings, the only thing they're missing is the championship, and that helps him. He says the friendships he made, he said Vlade, Peja, Doug, Bobby, all of them, they know what they had was special, and the fact that the smallest city of the four in the NBA in California, they were the ones who put the biggest scare into the Lakers. That he said, to him, there's no shame in that, and what hurts him more is that he got hurt in 2003 because he believes that team was better than the 2002 team, and he believes that team would have won the championship if he hadn't got hurt. So I think 2003 hurts a lot more because, as he put it, he knew the NBA. He'd seen the struggles of, whether it be Isaiah and the Pistons against the Celtics or Jordan against the Pistons, the Lakers trying to overcome Utah and San Antonio. He had seen all that, and he felt like 2002, there was enough pain from the way games, they were all mad about Game 6. There was so much pain from Game 7. He believed that pain was going to fuel them to a championship, and then he gets hurt.
Chris obviously loved Sacramento, his time in Sacramento. That's apparent in his past conversations. That's apparent in this article. How does he feel about Sacramento now?
Well, I didn't really get a lot into Sacramento now. I know I've talked to him in the past about that. He's a firm believer in that. What that group did is proof that Sacramento can win, and that you can have a winner in Sacramento. And it hurts him to see the team struggle for so long. I know a couple of years ago I wrote a story where he had said it was criminal that they had went through so many coaches with DeMarcus and how they had drafted so poorly. Yeah. And somebody in the organization called me, and they were mad at what Chris said. And it was like that he's not lying. It has not been good. And I think, that's the reason why he wanted to come back and help him. But unfortunately, he didn't get a chance. They went with Vlade, and, things are what they are now. But he really wants to see Sacramento do well. He loves the city. He has some of his, business, ventures out there. And another thing I didn't get into in this story, what I'm probably maybe do later on, is he's using his investments in the cannabis world to help people, get their records expunged, get into legitimate business. And I didn't get into the story where he at one point he does say that they had helped a guy who had been in prison for years and seen a company go legit using basically his model for cannabis. The guy who was in prison used his model and make a lot of money. They were able to get him, his record clean and get him a legitimate business. And Webb said he had tears in his eyes, and that felt like a championship because he's now able to not just help his family, but with the impact fund and everything he's doing, help tons of people around the country. So he's got his hand in so many different things. And I just know basketball-wise, he has, just have his business in Sacramento, but he does want to see all of that come together and then eventually get back to helping the Kings. That was a long way back to the Kings, but yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's great.
He does. Yeah, he has a lot of things that he's got going on, and he really wants to see Sacramento do well. And I know from talking to him numerous times, it pains him that the Kings have not been good in so long.
Do you think he makes the NBA 75 list?
I don't know. I think what I kind of fear for him, I think he should, but what I fear for him is that he'll get hit with irrelevance, like, the what have you done for me lately? And I think in some ways, kind of even to delay him getting into the Hall, was that people didn't really appreciate what he did when he did it. The way, it's easy to look now and say, wow, look at LeBron, look at KD, look at, Dirk didn't retire that long ago. Those guys have they're recent. But I think if you look at the way he played and the way guys are playing now, guys at his size, there's no denying the impact Webb had on the game of basketball. It's, like I said, to me, it's crazy that it took this long for him to even get into the Hall. But you look at the numbers, and not just the numbers, the era he did it in. It wasn't like he was a good power forward in an era where there were no power forwards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was dominant against guys. You had Rasheed Wallace, Karl Malone was still playing, Dirk, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and I still call Tim Duncan a center. I'm a contrarian. I still say he's a center. But
that's fine. Greatest power forward in the league history was the center.
Yeah, I will argue people forever that Tim Duncan is a center, but hey, but what Webb did, to me, what Webb did, and the fact that he turned Sacramento into not just a good team, a great team, and to me that can't, 8 winning seasons, all pretty much during his era. The last one came after he got traded, but that. I grew up in California. You spent time in California. What the Kings were before Webb and after Webb.
Yep.
And, they were a joke before. They've been a punchline after. But that period right there, they were legit. That's
real talk. Great stuff from Jason Jones here in The Athletic. Jason, you're a Raider fan. What's going on with your boys in Las Vegas? Is Derek real quick? Is Derek Carr going to be the quarterback of your squad next year?
I still think so. I have no, but I know John Gruden lusts for quarterbacks, so you never know. But my thing is with the Raiders, I don't care. Derek Carr is an easy target. I'm playing Madden last night, and I'm using them online. I'm like, can you give me some defenders who aren't 70s in their ratings, John? Everyone wants to act like they've got a good defense. They don't. It's terrible. And until you fix that, I don't care. Aaron Rodgers can stay in Green Bay and not have a defense.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a convenient thing to point at when you don't want to look at the fact that you drafted a guy 4 overall and Farrell, and then you got to brag about, well, he takes on the run blocks pretty well. Okay, so.
You got to point out something really, really specific when it comes to what he does well.
Yeah, he really takes on double teams well. It's like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, good call there. Great work, Jason. We appreciate you as always. Thanks for hanging out, man.
No problem. Anytime. Take care.